because I can go design something on on my PC at home, and then literally click print and have that thing in my hand, later that evening. So yeah, so I started getting into this, and then I got into there was this whole open source 3D printer movement, I guess. It's called RepRap, and started by a professor in the UK. Anyway, so there's all these plans out there that you could just download and cobble together and stuff and build your own printer with some cheaply, locally sourced stuff, right? And then you just buy the electronics or whatever. So that was cool. That was even cheaper for me. Like, you could put together a printer for like $800 or something like that, right? So it got kind of ridiculously cheap. And then I found out that I was more interested in the printer itself and how it worked and things like that. And so I just kept building more and more printers, basically, and then trying to offload them on eBay, and then people bought them, and so I kept doing it. And then it was like weekly, on a weekly basis, 2 years ago, where people were throwing new stuff on Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff, and they got kind of ridiculous, right? So then here I am doing this on the side, concurrently with a full-time job, and I was like, okay, this is impossible to keep up. So then I decided to get into consumables, which is the filament. Usually for like desktop printing, it uses FDM technology, which stands for fused deposition modeling. It basically uses a strand of plastic that's like weed whacker stuff, right? So around that time, I had this manufacturing and quality control, whatever, experience from Honda. There wasn't a brand name filament out there. People were just using like plastic welding rod and other junk made for different industries. So at the same time, I had some resources kind of opened up to me, local factory stuff and manpower and things like that. So I kind of put everything together, and I got a plastic extrusion line put together, and then now we're making filament. Been making this for since the end of last year. So things are going pretty well. It's kind of taken off, and at least it's sustaining itself, and I'm not dumping money into it regularly anymore, which is nice. So now it's just kind of planning for the future. So that's kind of me and how I got my business started in a nutshell. This is a CoStart entrepreneurial club kind of thing. But I guess on to rapid prototyping. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's making some prototype, which is by definition like low volume, right? It's a one-off to small scale, maybe 100 pieces or something, very quickly, right? Printing might seem slow, but you're kind of pushing a button and then waiting a couple hours to a day or whatever, and you get a part. So I kind of talked about how people at least in the big OEM automotive world use prototyping, but like on a more individual scale, like let's say like this kind of group, you might have an idea for something like well, I'll use one of my buddies' companies, startups locally, as an example. Their team designed and built like a handheld 3D scanner, right? Right now there are a few out there, but theirs is about yay big. Has a screen on there on the side that you see, and then a couple cameras and stuff. And the idea is you hit a button, you walk around an object, you hit record or whatever, and then stop, and then it'll generate an STL file, which is stereolithography, which is basically just a point cloud of 3D objects, right? So it exports that, and then from there you do whatever you want. Obviously there's 3D printing, so he could email that to me or whatever, Dropbox it, and I can get it and hit print and have it. So something he scanned, whatever, in his basement, and then that same evening, I was printing it in my basement, right? Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So let's say they had this idea for this scanner, right? But who are you going to call to just get a prototype made, right? You can have the electrical engineer solder up the board and all that stuff and put all that hardware together. But then you get someone to design a case or something for it, right? Something nice, not just made out of cardboard or plywood. You know, something actually with some ergonomics and holes for LEDs or whatever, and hit print, and then here you go. You have this fancy case that you can paint or whatever, and then go pitch it.